December 11th, Jennifer Hamilton from T-Shirt Inked sent me this wonderful piece of art. I sent it off to Village Impressions, where they made me a rubber foundry pattern. I had to put a 1/6" piece of wood underneath it because it was a little thin. Mounted on a match place with another piece I was working on. And we rammed it up. We actually did 5 of these because I needed 4. And I knew it was going to be difficult. We poured them in aluminum. It's a big pour here on early Saturday morning. Of the 5 I poured, I only got 2. It's one of the downsides of the rubber patterns. You can't do any work on them. So you get the best you can, and then you fix it up in the aluminum. It was still very hot when I broke it out. I fixed it up and put in added detail. And then we rammed it up and poured it again. The 2 I got the first time are now out for a second time with all the detail I want on them. We had poured one more time, so that we ended up with 4 on the match plate. Here we are going over to brass. You can see me there. That's a parting bag full of graphite. That's a parts cleaning brush trimmed down to about 1/2 inch. You need to get the graphite to stick permanently to your pattern, so you really need to work it in. It's basically like rubbing a pencil lead on a sheet of paper. You want that graphite to stay with the pattern. Blow off the excess. Light dusting of the graphite. And then a heavier but even dusting of parting compound. This is the drag half for the bottom of my flask. Sand riddle. As you can see, that's well-used Petrobond. That well-used Petrobond's got some metal in it, so I always wear a glove because this is not a good time to cut your hand open. You want to gently tuck that first sand in so it doesn't move around your parting. Shovel full of sand about even to the top. Hit it with the peen into your rammer, tucking it in nicely. Because this pattern's almost completely flat, you don't have to do any special techniques with the rammer. Just be careful your splash well, it's the highest point. I always pace my splash well away from me, because then when I flip it over, it's next to me where I want it. Fill the mold up good and full. Go at it with the peen again. When you're happy with the peening, a little extra sand in the corners, break out that butt end and pack it down flat. This is the time to make sure you get the corners good. Strike off the excess sand. Don't try and do it all at once because you do not want to push the mold around. Now, sand's $2 a pound, so I clean it off so I keep it all in the bin. I pick that up and set it behind me. We're going to open it up. And it's a good pull. Back over to bench to do the cope. This is a flat back pattern, so the cope is just bottom board. You don't need near as much riddled sand on the cope for a flat back. Tuck the sand in. Do the same technique now as we did for the drag. These flasks are 3.5 inches high. So you do that sand in about 1.5 inch layers. So twice. If you go over about 5 inches, you'll probably have to use the peen 3 times. Switch into the butt end again. Back to the strike. Clean up the excess sand again. And a gentle pat to get rid of any loose sand. That's my sprue cutter. I'm measuring where the sprue is going to go and transferring the measurements from the drag to the cope. Remember, when you cut your sprue, you want to push it through, but try not to twist it. If you twist it, you'll mess up that board underneath there. You put half circle smiles in it. Just push it down gently. No need for a hammer. Cut my pouring well out. Hit it with the parting. This helps you clean it up and to see it when you're pouring. Get a soft artist brush, clean out any loose sand, break it loose. And up on its side and blow it out. Make sure you get the whole bottom, so you don't want to transfer any loose sand from the corners of the mold and have it drop into your drag. The cope over, put it on the drag, install the dust cover, and mark the flask. I do at least 10 items at a time, and I need to know what order to put them down and which ones I'm pouring, so I know when I'm running out of metal. Here we are on the brass pour. Breakout. And there's our first 4 belt buckles. Cut those off. Go to the buffer. It's aggressive black compound on 2 different wheels. The one closest to us is sisal, so it's more aggressive. The other one's a stitched cotton, so it gives you a more finished, more polished look. After this, I'll move over to Tripoli, but we don't video that. You guys don't want to watch me polish. Now, the belt buckles need a little bit of a curve, and I like to add it later instead of casting it in. See, I use a very technical method. Notice the leather I'm using both in the vise and on the wrench so I don't scar the surface. We got a nice little bow for our belt buckle. Here I'm marking the pin. It's an 1/8 inch drill bit. The hardware is made out of a 1/8 inch brazing rod, silicon bronze. Here you'll see I've laid out and measured and marked all my bends. I bought this wire bender. If you buy one of these, do not cheap out. You have to get a good one or it will not bend this 1/8 inch wire. It's very simple to use. The handle comes off so you can get it out of your way. All you gotta do is be careful about keeping the wire flat so the whole thing doesn't end up curved. Got a little spring back on that one. Now, I use some brass tubing that I bought specifically for this. It acts as a hinge. Insert the buckle in there. You can give it a little tap to get it squared up. There you go, our buckle hardware. Inserted the pin, the buckle loop, ready to the brazing table. I used 50% silver brazing wire for this. It matches the brass color best. A B Cup 5 is plenty strong, but it'll look very red on that brass. Heat up from the face so the whole edge of the buckle gets hot. Keep that torch moving. Then move up to the top. Because remember, that piece of 1/8 inch wire is going to heat up way faster than the buckle. Feed in a little wire, you don't need very much. The pin's sitting in a hole, so it really can't move. Now move over to the loop. And the same thing, you have to keep the heat on the buckle or you'll overheat the wire. Remember, when you set this up, you don't want to use too much flux, because wherever there's flux, the solder is going to try and go. In this case, solder is a misnomer. It's actually a brazing wire. So you have to get much closer to the melting point of the brass. And here I am adding my touch mark. And they all say HT1. One more trip to the buffer to clean up from the brazing. There you go, a finished BT belt buckle.